Hi there, and a very warm welcome to this week's quick tip. And this week should really be a quick tip. I know I say that all the time, but this time I mean it. I swear. This week we are going to take a look at the internal compositing system of Octane. And this might be where the confusion starts. So multipasses were renamed to render AOV Group. And there's another thing, that is the AOV Groups. And this one is the internal compositing. So if you ever wondered what the hell the AOV groups were, this might be the answer for you. If you like my content and want to support me, I have set up a Patreon. The link is down in the description below. Also, a huge thank you for all of you who became a Patreon and supported me. For those who are interested, I have all my Patreons listed at the end of the video. I think that's the least I can do as a thank you for your support. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the scenes. Welcome to 3D World. As you might have noticed, I'm shamelessly stealing older scenes from other tutorials and put them in here to give them another spin. So this is the scene I use for our render layers tutorial. And if you don't know what render layers are, you can click on the info box on the top right in the video now. So the short version, what render layers are, is that it lets us split up the scene into a beauty object that is cut out by an alpha and the effects of that object to the rest of the scene. So since we only have a simple backdrop here, we can see the shadow of the object also cut out by an alpha, the reflection of the object on the backdrop, as well as another method of compositing the shadows by multiplying. So why am I showing you this scene? This scene is made to come together in compositing so we can change the background color to, for example, a white or a darker background. But this also makes it very hard to imagine what this will look like later on. And this is exactly the reason why I chose the scene, because with the power of the AOV groups, we can have a working composite already in our live viewer. So let's get started with that. Next, AOV groups and where to find them. So basically you can find them in the render settings by going to the Octane renderer, and there you can click on AOV groups. AOV groups have also a couple of presets, but we will deal with them later. For now, let's just create an input here. Let's scroll that down, and we need to add a layer here. So if we click on add, you can see that basically all the layers that Octane offers are there to choose from. So for now, let's go just with a beauty. And as soon as we've done that, you can see that there is an out layer popping up here. And if we go to that, you can see basically we have the same as our main layer. And this is because we chose the beauty here. Now we can also scroll that down, and we can see there's even more info available here. But this very quickly becomes an overview nightmare, so there's actually another way to deal with render AOVs. And this is, who would have guessed it, in the node system. So let's go to the Octane node editor, and you can see there's a dedicated button for render AOVs here. Now, usually they are in a bit of a jumbled up mess here, so what you can do is right click and auto arrange selected, and then maybe help a little bit to clear that up even more. Here we go. You can see now we have a dedicated output. This is what shows up at the output here. And we have selected our comp layer here and put in the beauty layer here. We don't need the render settings for now, so let's close that and concentrate on the nodes for now. To get our comp here going with the background as well as the shadows and reflections, so we can see everything in one image, we need to bring those into our comp here. So what we need to do is add 3 more layers for the shadow, the reflection, as well as a background. So let's bring this closer to here, because I know that otherwise the layer would be cut off. Now if we create new layers, we need to choose the layer we want to have from the start. So let's do so by going to the black shadows and then add another layer which will become the reflection. And then we will need a third layer which will become the color. So we just want to add a color here. Now let's do the same here and auto arrange our selected so it becomes more tidy, and also get the inputs here show up correctly. Now this only brings us halfway there. We also need to set up our comp correctly. So let's do this next. I think this is a perfect place to mention that the AOV groups is pretty much a work in progress. So there's some quirkiness going on already and the UI isn't refined that much. Otoy is planning to expand the system in Octane 2023 quite a lot, so although this is basically a work in progress, I think this is the perfect time and place to get yourself familiar with the system. Speaking of quirks, for example, the color AOV got in without a composite AOV, and it of course needs a composite AOV to work. So let's copy one of those and bring that in here. And now you can see the background color, which is white, is now showing up properly. As with all compositing packages, of course, the layer stack order here is important as well. So what we are doing right now is viewing the white color image here on top of everything else. But this should be the bottom of the stack. So let's exchange it with the actual beauty pass here, which should be on top. Here we go. Also, we can clean up the nodes here a little bit more. But first, let's see if everything is in order now. So we want to start with the color. Then next we want to have the shadows, yes, then the reflections, and last but not least, the beauty. So as this is all in order, let's actually tidy up our nodes here real quick. So let's start comping those together, and since we only care about the base layer with the color and the shadow, let's turn off the other layers by going into the composite AOV and turning those off. Since we chose our black shadows, we know that it's basically a black layer with an alpha, so let's go to the comp here and let's see what we can do. With the alpha operation, let's actually tell it to use the alpha, and we don't see anything yet because the blend mode is set to add, and everything added on top of white stays white. So let's go and set this to normal, and as soon as we've done that, the shadow pops up. So since the reflection is next and reflections are added additively, what I want to do here is to lower the value of the background to 0.5. Now you can see instead of being a middle gray value, this is a lot lighter than middle gray, and this tells us that our comp is actually done in linear color space, which is a very good thing because that means colors and lightness values are added together correctly. So to get a middle gray color, you would need to go into the Cinema 4D slider here and set it to 50%, which then gives us a different linear value. Alright, so next let's go to the reflection here and just toggle it on. And since the default blend mode is add in a compositing AOV, this already adds the reflection in the correct way. Last but not least, we need to add our beauty, so let's turn that on, and this is definitely not the correct way since it's also added. So let's go to the blend mode and set it to normal, and of course it also has an alpha, so we need to go to the alpha operation and turn it on there. And basically that's it, that's your final composite in the live viewer. So instead of imagining what it would look like, you can see the final result here in the out section. Alright, welcome to our light ID scene. For those who know the scene, you might already know what's coming. For those who don't know what light IDs are, I made a tutorial and you can watch it by clicking on the info box on the top right on your video. So basically we gave all the lights different IDs so they will show up in different passes. Now with the AOV system, you can actually go to the presets here and set the light mix node and apply it. This brings in all the available light passes, so all up to the number 8, but we are only using up to the number 3, so let's tick off the rest of them. Here we go. So now the big advantage here is that this system lets you mix and match lighting within the live viewer without going to the comp stage first. So let's go to our output here, so we have access to our sliders. And now what we can do is slide around those and see what's happening in our image in real time. So for example, if I want to decrease the intensity of our ceiling light or even increase it, we can do so. And notice that is all happening without re-rendering. And also what we can do is change the color of our light. So we can make it more reddish orange, for example. So while I always recommend to dial your light intensities into your final product in the rendering and therefore get the right sampling for your lights, what this environment does is allows you to mix and match your lighting situations here to get a nice understanding of what lighting situation might be preferable for you to render out as a final image. And if you don't care about wasting samples, you might be pleased to hear that this output is saved anyway as long as you have enabled the render AOV output here. So basically everything that pops up here will be saved as a render AOV group in your output path. Okay, on to our last scene. Welcome to our scene. Again, flashback to last week where we did talk about the universal camera. Again, click on the top right info box if you want to know more about this topic. So what I want to show you here is that we can even do color corrections on an object basis using the AOVs. What I have set up here is a custom AOV, also info box for that tutorial. And what I want to do is create a correction layer for that. So let's set up our system here by going to the group AOVs and add an input. Go to the input, add layer and add the beauty. And we will need another beauty layer. So let's add a second beauty layer here and then actually go to our nodes and to the render AOVs here. Now again, right click auto arrange here. And then let's view what we have on the out channel. Now the render looks a bit brighter than our main, and this is again because of the usual blend mode being set to add. So let's go with the normal again. So we get exactly the same result on the main as well on the out one. To get in our custom AOV 2, let's go to the upper layer here and duplicate the input. And let's set this one to be custom AOV 2. Here we go. Now you can see that we have a mask here. So what we want to do is get this one here into the mask layer. And now you can see we are separating our chipsets that were formerly in the custom 2 to an alpha. Again, it begins to repeat itself. So what we want to do now is go for the alpha operation and set this to alpha compositing to get back the layers that are underneath. And last but not least, what we want to do is create a color correction, set it up here, and then maybe go to it and set the exposure lower so we can have darker chipsets here. So we just changed the chip from the brighter color here to a slightly darker color. And as you know from the session before, this will also be saved out with all of your other passes. And this is pretty much it for this week. If you're still here, thank you very much for watching till the end. Also, thank you very much for all my Patreons, which you can see on the end scroll right now. If you're interested in becoming a patron and supporting me and my tutorials as well as my spare time projects, there is a link in the description box down below. I also managed to finish one of my bigger projects, the tube projects. If you're familiar with the older tutorials, I was showing parts of it in there. I set up a BEHANCE page where you can watch it as well as get a lot of background infos. The link is also down in the description. Last but not least, if you have any suggestions for future tutorials, let me know in the comments. And that brings this tutorial to a close. Thank you very much for watching and happy layering. Bye.